Alright guys, Red here. Today we're going to be touching on the current state of Star Citizen and the direction things are going. There's been some really amazing updates recently on features that are coming into the game or have been added already, opening up a lot of new content and experiences for citizens. And I thought we should just touch base for a moment and try and take in the whole picture, see where things are going and if we're liking that direction and the approach to the implementation, and if the prioritising of certain aspects over others is a good thing for the game, or if we'd prefer things had panned out differently. Development recently has had a few highlights, you could say, and it's been quite a busy and exciting time overall. Among the long list of things, a few standout ones for me would be the new rivers, the new outposts and caves, the cargo refactor, persistence, some Gen 12 stuff started finding its way into the game, the racing stuff is really cool, the new Korea and prison gameplay, salvage obviously, soft death, some investigation missions around the corner as well, underground facilities, master modes, Lorville remaster, some big mining changes coming up that have some positive impact for multi-crew, engineering gameplay, and the tractor beam stuff, which will let us scavenge components and replace equipment on the fly, building interiors and pyro progress and lots of other things. Now when you stack it all up like that, things seem like they're progressing along pretty well, and there's a lot of reasons to be positive about the future and the current state of things in the game. My personal opinion is that these changes are actually above my expectations, and by that I mean I don't think when I bought the game I expected the environments to be so granular in terms of depth of either gameplay or even graphical design, right? I mean, the scale and audacity is just mind-blowing at times. And to see not the first pieces come together, but the glue starting to cement those pieces together. The in-between bits starting to fill the holes in the game loops. Take the cargo refactor and soft death for example, and salvage as well. Those three changes have in many ways brought to life and completely changed how different missions and game careers interact with each other. If we take the most extreme example I can think of, say you run cargo. Now you've got player pirates with a genuine interest in what you're hauling, and a reasonably effective way to take it from you. In a very real sense, cargo's kind of now mixing with combat in a unique way that it wasn't before. The docile and normally quite sedate and relaxing space trucking scene quite possibly just became the most sphincter puckering job in the game. Well, after racing, to the point where running about without an escort would be pretty ballsy and even reckless to some extent. So inevitably now we have a decent player pirate versus security escort combat loop emerging. Not just the flimsy role player version we had before, but a genuine tactical necessity. And it won't be long before we see orgs starting to emerge that just patrol the space lanes picking off undefended freighters or extorting them for a profit cut. And in response, we'll see security orgs become more common, and they too will expect a cut of the cash flow. And that brings us to salvage. With the advent of salvage there comes another group of opportunists. If even your hull can be stripped and sold off in boxes of freshly packed despair, then no matter what side of the cargo battle you're on, it would always be prudent to have a salvage crew on hand to sweep up the spoils of war. So now what was once just cargo with sporadic extortion is now growing branches into actual piracy and PvP combat and salvage. And we've still not even spoken about the tractor beam gameplay, which will make all your components and weapons accessible for stripping and selling, which basically creates a new job within the salvage crews that we can call stripper. So in a hypothetical scenario, you have a cargo run, protected by players, attacked by other players, the cargo secured or stolen, then the inevitable battle site picked over by salvage crews, all stemming from a single cargo run. And this is just the first steps, because we've not mentioned that hacking and boarding also might be a thing at some point, requiring more people and ships and equipment and planning and coordination. As I said though, this is just one example, although a pretty direct and obvious one. Mining will likely have a similar evolution. The sandbox style of emergent gameplay alone will open up many avenues of small, unforeseen possibilities. The fight for control of Korea could become a pivotal point in determining the power balance in a server. Pirates might be more inclined to do a job if they know they have an easy out because their org holds Korea. If held by player security, then the pirates can be constantly under bounty. That's obviously a bit black and white. What I would really expect to happen most often is that pirates themselves protect your cargo from other pirates in exchange for money and not blowing you up and looting you the hard way. Basically though, if you're a pirate, it's happy days in Star Citizen right now. And that brings us to the current direction of the game in general. Although just one example, this is a very good model for showing the crux of what Star Citizen will become going forward. A lot of gameplay, it seems, will depend a lot on multiplayer. And if you are to effectively get things done, you might be fine going solo in a small fast ship, as it's easier to get away or fight back, etc. But the bigger the ship you need, the more people you will need to round up to pull off a job. Now personally, I'm okay with this. It seems pretty realistic to me, and space would be hard to regulate in reality. I'm not a big pirate myself, and often prefer the more sedate tasks, and adding the excitement of evading some clever little pirate snares would be a pretty cool experience, especially if it was refined a bit further, and instead of just shoot the ship till it's soft deaths and then take what you want, you have to use special weapons or surgically disable certain components without rupturing a fuel line or putting a cannon round through a warp core, etc. Then you would have to board a still inhabited and defended ship. Offensive tractor beams were mentioned in an ISC recently, and they should come in handy here, keeping an entire ship in stasis where you send a boarding party. And again, another little layer is added, another little bit of glue settling in between the cracks. Personally, I feel like the speed changes proposed in the Master Mode feature have to be very precise, because what we have right now is a warp between points. You can't really chase. All you can really do is camp up at necks in the woods, mining outposts for example, and wait for prey. There's no hunt involved. There's not much room to outsmart the prey or the hunter this way. Being able to move at a faster speed around the planets and moons and still keeping the quantum drivability for longer distances sounds on the surface like a decent compromise. It hopefully will give both the pirate and the hauler a chance at success and bring the engagements into some semblance of skill rather than luck. And although I'm really glad we can still jump between planetary systems, any gameplay that has you doing nothing for 10 minutes is problematic, and that's where engineering comes in. This feature, above all the others, was what made me want to make this video, and it seems like such a simple thing on the surface, but when I seen the ISC and realised how close it might be to being in the game, my honest reaction was, holy shit, you crazy son of a b***, you did it. But seeing it, everything just sort of clicked together in my head. These sons of b****s at CIG are actually going to pull this off. Star Citizen I mean, in general. Getting out your seat mid-jump to tune up some components and have a wee tinker with some overclocks, setting up ship templates for easy switching between hit and run or loiter, maximum range exploration or short fast delivery missions, taking a few hits during a bounty and going out to patch the hull with a salvage gun, with material you stripped from your fallen enemy. Noticing one of your coolers needs a small fix and a power cycle, and one shield needs replaced entirely, so you strip it out the other guy's ship, tweak things all up, and go on your way. Live to fight another day. This is the way. This is literally me being a citizen and doing what I can to get by, just making my way in a cold, harsh universe. And then you've got other things. The racing, the detective missions, the new caves and outposts, stuff you can be doing away on your own exploring. You could sort of imagine spending a whole night in one of the new interior spaces, a tower block on Microtech, solving a murder, or stealing a blueprint from an underground facility. And the game and all its internal components and depth just keep filling out and filling out. Now I'm not an early backer, and I can see counterpoints to where we are currently at, as opposed to where we were promised we would be. And I do respect those opinions and acknowledge the validity there. And everyone is going to have their own opinion, no doubt, about where the game is versus where it's going. You might be dreading these new changes, because they will mess up your quiet mining and cargo life. And I get that, and to be honest, I don't have any real answers. But I'm sure everyone will adapt. We will, just like we would in real life, start randomising paths to make ourselves harder to find, using decoys to increase our chances of not getting caught. The usual tricksy human ways. I'm confident that this can be done in a balanced way, otherwise it's just going to be a universe full of pirates pirating pirates. I realise the overall tone of this vid has been primarily positive, and I'd really love to hear and discuss some of the problems you foresee coming into the game with some of the changes. Anything you're excited about and any emerging gameplay you can see cascading from the interplay between the mechanics. I feel like just recently, and I'm not sure if I can even reliably describe why, I feel like the game and its development has hit some sort of stride. Like someone's got the horse by the reins and is actively and measurably steering this ponderous nebula of code and art in a unified direction, and because of that, momentum is building. Now it's possible this is all subjective, and of course you might be having an entirely different experience from me. After all, we did just collectively go through the 3.18 scuff, and I myself tend to ebb and flow throughout patch cycles, but my experience has been that the team at CIG are reactive, they are focused, and there is a vision there. Just today they announced that 3.18.2 will go to PTU, whilst 3.18.1 will go into a locked state where load tests will be run internally that will simulate load to see if the servers can handle the output. This essentially means we should never experience a launch like 3.18 ever again. Nothing is ever certain though, and I'm the first to admit being an alpha tester for this game has been one of the most frustrating experiences gaming wise, period. That said, when you boil it all down, there's nothing else even comes close. But let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Remember to let your hopes and dreams loose in the comments. Try and keep the criticism constructive. Remember, like and subscribe. Remember there's a Patreon. 07 guys. But the bigger the ship you need, the more people you will need to round up to get, for f***'s sake.